All right. It looks like we are live on Facebook. Um, and yeah, let's get started. So, hi everybody. I'm Nirupam Nigam. I run the Ocean Art competition for the Underwater Photography Guide. Ocean Art has one of the world's largest underwater photography competitions. It has over, well, anywhere from 16 to $120,000 in prizes, depending on the year. And certainly this last year has been the biggest competition we've had in terms of the number of entries. So it's been a really exciting year. And I'm excited to present the Best in Show winner to you guys, Eduardo Labat. And yeah, this is just kind of a short interview to talk about his winning image, which is really quite stunning. It's an image of a ballet of sharks. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about his career, about his thought process taking the photo, and the situation behind it. So thanks for joining me today, Eduardo. And yeah, it's great to have you on.
Thank you for the invitation. As I said before we started live streaming, it's a humbling experience. I'm always on the side of watching these videos, and I never imagined myself being interviewed for one of them. So it's
Well,
very
I
exciting.
I would say with the kind of photographic talent you have, you'll probably be interviewed more in the
Thank
future. So,
you.
um,
Thank you.
great. So let me go ahead and start by sharing this image over here. Um, it's unique this year in the fact that this is actually a black and white photo. So that is fairly unusual for us, with the ocean art competition in picking an image that is in one of the smaller categories. Now, when I say smaller category, I mean a category that's not wide angle, is not portrait, macro, or marine life behavior. This is a category that's very specifically black and white. Um, and I think, I mean, just the imagery is stunning, and it really captures a unique moment. So. I want to start talking a little bit about this photo, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up my questions. And yeah, I guess just starting out, Eduardo, how does it feel to have won Ocean Art 2024 and to be recognized in a competition like this, and in a category like this? Because, like I said before, it's such a unique category.
Completely surreal, to be honest. I submitted this is so I submitted the pictures to the contest and to the competition. And to be honest, I mean, obviously I like my pictures, but I guess it happens to everyone that you or to most people. I didn't expect to win at all. I mean, I in the back of my mind I was thinking maybe if I place at least an honorable mention, that would be amazing, incredible.
Right.
So I when I received that email, the first email I received said first place black and white, and I was over the moon. I couldn't believe it. And then a few minutes later, I received an email best in show, and I was just, no, this can't be. They must have the wrong person. So, but no, it was incredible. I mean, I have to admit that I still go into the website and check the and check the website for the announcements and everything. I still do that, even though it's been what 2 weeks now. But amazing, yeah, a surreal experience, and as I said, very humbled and very appreciative of it.
Well, it was definitely well deserved, and I will say a couple things. One, along with people when they win, it's a huge accomplishment. But for those of you that didn't win, it's just important to note that like winning a competition like this, it's harder than getting into Harvard. It's harder than doing a lot of things because there's so many entries, and you could almost make a whole new competition with the people that didn't win. So, Eduardo, getting to that spot is really quite an incredible achievement. Um, now, I think. There was a second. Oh yeah, the second point I wanted to make is if you haven't seen the competition results, I will post that in our Facebook Live, and also in YouTube in the comments below, so that you can see the competition results. You can look up Ocean Art 2024 winners, and they'll be showed on our website, the Underwater Photography Guide. That's uwphotographyguide.com, as well as over 200 media organizations around the world. And I know it's been in Forbes and Petapixel and all the big diving magazines. So it'll get shared around over the course of the year. Usually we have it shared in The Guardian and BBC and CNN and Fox. So it'll start getting picked up. And yeah, that's kind of one of the great things about the competition is it really allows us to, take an image like this and show it to the general public, and millions of people get to view that. And then they start thinking about, well, maybe sharks aren't that scary if somebody can survive taking a photo of all these sharks circling, and maybe there's a reason to actually conserve them, which is really the story of Revillagigedo and where you were taking that photograph. It's a conservation area, so I wanted to get a little bit more into that. So take me back a little bit to the moment where you captured the shot, and what was going through your mind when you saw the white tips moving like that?
So it was it was the last dive of the day. So it was the it was dimming a little bit. And throughout the other dives around Roca Partida, the earlier dives that day, the white tips were all in the ledges. For those people that have gone there or have seen pictures of them, you've probably seen a lot of pictures of the white tips on the ledges, which is
Right,
beautiful. They look, I mean, they just like rest in groups in these ledges, but they're and a few of them come down and swim, get back to another ledge, etc. But they normally don't make these big formations. And that on that last dive, towards the end of the dive, we started seeing a lot of them come together. I mean, it was dozens of these white tips coming together, and somebody I think called it like a Sharknado sort of scenario.
yeah.
I mean, it was a lunch of shark, and no one was expecting this. Even the guides were not expecting this. It's supposedly even the guys that go there frequently said it wasn't the typical behavior. So and at the beginning, it was never disorganized.
Right.
It had some organization to it, but then at some point they started getting more and more organized, and I was photographing them from the side when I saw this, and then I
Okay.
saw that they were starting to form a like a circular formation, and that's when I decided to go slowly up top, and that's where I took the picture. That's a picture before the black and white one.
Okay,
So
so
this
this is the one from the
it
side.
looked organized, but yes, from the side, and as you can see, there's a lot of them, and they're starting. If you look at towards the left side of the picture, you can see they're start to circle. They're
Yeah.
starting to organize little by little. And then
Okay.
when I saw that, it would be nice to get a top if I can get. So I slowly went up without scaring the sharks, and then that's when I took that picture, and that's where it looked the sort of that nice geometry, and with obviously it's deep at that portion, so with the darker background,
Right. Yeah. And for,
basically. So
oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, that was
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say that at this particular site, for those of you that don't know, it's 700 feet to the bottom. So when you're really, taking a photo like that straight top down, it really is the abyss. So it's a pretty unique shot. Um, and I was curious, did anybody ever explain what that behavior was? Was it feeding or mating or did anyone know?
Not really. I mean, at least I asked the guides, I asked the captain, and it was uncommon. But it didn't. They so it didn't look like feeding. They didn't have. We didn't see them feeding. They didn't have a. They weren't swimming in an aggressive fashion. It might have been some. They were thinking maybe it was with mating.
Okay.
Uh, there was a few pregnant females we could see that were definitely in the animation. So the hypothesis is this was it had to do with some sort of mating ritual or along those lines. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, it would be it's you almost want to know what those sharks are doing all night after that last dive. Um it's
For sure.
yeah, yeah, it's definitely social behavior. Or at least it seems that way in the photo. So, um now
No.
from
Yeah.
oh sorry, what was that? I think there's a bit of a connection issue.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So my next question was, what made you decide to shoot this image in black and white, or rather, I suppose probably post-process in black and white?
Yeah. So initially I post processed the image in color, and I liked the image in color. I mean, it was like a play on dark blues, and but but then when I was analyzing the image, also with the help of one of the photography guys in the group, uh, basically we said these are white tips, right? So with that dark black, the background, if we can get the background really dark, which is, as you say, it's so deep there, it's not that difficult to get a nice black background. Uh, the tips of the shards really stand out against the like gray and body. And when we did that, when I did that, it came out really nicely, especially because the sharks, I think when we did that, when I put it in black and white, they didn't look flat. You could still see a little play of light on some of the sharks, so you could see a little bit of perception and depth in especially the bigger ones that are close. And the darker ones in the background is nice because it gives you also a sense of depth that of that abyss you're talking about. It just goes into that place. So I think when I turned it into black and white and I saw it in black and white, then I said definitely this is a picture that I think should be in black and white, even though the other version looked nice too, but this one to me looked better.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't look at the photo from the standpoint uh of white tips until you said that, but now that I'm seeing it, I can really see um it almost looks like Christmas lights or something. Like you can really see the white tips. It's a unique perspective. I didn't think about that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, so let me pull up my next question. Um, so we spoke a little bit about Roca Partida, and we know it's a pretty famous dive site. For those of you that don't know, off the coast of Mexico, maybe about 250 to 300 miles, and it's a small rock in the middle of the ocean. I've done that dive a few times, and it's an incredible dive. I've had my best dive of my life there. But for you, during this experience, what was the diving like overall? And I think you touched on this a little bit, but was it kind of like an unexpected moment? Or could you see it start to form?
In in Revivagigedo or this moment? You
Oh,
mean
Roca
this
Partida.
moment?
Yeah, yeah.
The so oh Rocco, it was my first time in Revivagigedo, Socorro, Rocco Partida. So I had no past experience there. I had seen videos and pictures from Rocca Partida, but I hadn't done obviously diving there before. So this was a new, obviously, dive site to me. Uh, And even though I had seen the videos, as happens often when there, it's a completely different, I mean, experience. I mean, and it was, I think it was much. I was expecting something good, but this was, I mean, much better than I expected. Even if you take away the sharks and the dolphins, we saw a humpback whale swam by us that day, which we
Nice.
were really lucky. So even if you take that away from the experience, just the geography, like looking up those huge like rock pillars, it looks beautiful. And we were very lucky that day for Roca Partida, particularly because the day it was completely flat. I mean, there was almost no waves, very little current. Well, there is some current, obviously, around the rock, but no waves. I mean, not a lot of wind at all. It was a beautiful day. Because sometimes, from what I've heard, is you can get pretty challenging weather conditions there quite a bit because there's nothing really protecting anything. It's just, as you say, two rock outcroppings in the middle, basically, in the middle of the ocean. But yeah, it was. I mean, the dives there were amazing. I mean, I think in general, all that archipelago, including Socorro, is beautiful. I mean, the diving there is amazing. And as you said, I think it's a testament, like in Galapagos and other places where conservation efforts are in place. You could really tell. You could really tell because of the diversity of animals you see, the amount of animals you see compared to other places where obviously it's not as controlled in terms of conservation.
Yeah, I think one of the most unique things about Revillagigedo is every year the diving seems to get a little better. And it's not like that in most places around the world, but every year they seem to notice more hammerhead sharks. The dolphins get more interacted with the divers, and you get this feeling that there are animals coming here for a reason, and they're all coming here at the same time. So every dive there can almost be like a Disney movie where you see, every species all in one song at the same time, and it's pretty unique, especially Roca
Yeah.
Partida. I'm just curious, when were you diving there? Because what you're describing actually sounds like a day that I was there.
Oh, so it was from the end of March, beginning of April last year.
Okay, okay. I think I was there around February last year, but the whales were still there and they were passing by, and it was pretty calm.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, end of February.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, well, that's great. I mean, it's a really special place. So. Uh, it's also a difficult place. And I wanted to touch on this. You're kind of in the middle of the blue, and it's this straight up and down rock. So when you're taking a shot like this, how do you compensate with your buoyancy and getting your settings right? And how do you set up something like that when the moment is so quick and the conditions are relatively difficult, in the sense that it's just, open blue water?
Yeah. Eh, yeah, that's a good point because as you know, Mary, I mean, a few pictures when you look at them, you're like, oh, this would have been an amazing picture if I would have adjusted the shutter speed a little bit to or to the aperture. But yeah, for sure. So uh, I tried for this one in particular. I had since it was not the first shot of the series, I adjusted a little bit, but it was different because the sideways, as you know, the because of the light, how the light was coming in, it was different. So
Right.
when I went over, I think the main thing that I adjusted is I'm trying to think back. I think I increased the ISO
Okay.
uh, because I was shooting now downward, right? So and I knew I need to get that extra. boost of light. So I increased the ISO. For these pictures, I used 1/160th for shutter speed. And basically because these, I mean, in my experience with these sharks, they're not they can be, but they're not generally super fast swimmers. So 1/160th, I think, is great. I mean, to put this into context, last year I did a dive with a bunch of silkies. I used 1/160th on my first tank, and I think all the pictures are useless. They're so fast going to the
Yeah.
camera that I had to, for the second tank, and I didn't realize it at the moment. So I
Right.
had to, depending on the shark, you need to adjust that shutter speed I found.
Yeah.
And but for these, I think 1/6 around there is a good speed to not get blur and obviously to get them as sharp as possible. And I think basically that was what I did. I was adjusting a little bit when I was on the side, and when I went up and I looked down, took one shot, then I adjusted the ISO, and I think that's when the picture came together. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess one of the questions that I had between these two photos, it seems pretty clear here that you used some strobe lighting on the side photo.
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
end up doing that with this as well? It's always hard to tell in a black and white photo.
Yeah. So I did. Uh, but I'm not 100% sure how much real light was getting to. I mean, I guess my point is I could have turned off the strobes.
Right.
Didn't want to miss the shot. I had the shot, the composition, and I
Yeah.
knew if I started,
Y-
I could lose that geometry. So I just took the picture.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
knew the distance I had from the sharks, likely the strobes were not going to do anything. Maybe even bother me with extra backscatter.
Right.
But thankfully it was pretty clear, so the backscatter was fairly under control. But yeah, I think maybe the bigger sharks that you see near the eye region, you see a
Right.
little bit of light, that may be a little bit of strobe light getting there. Yeah, the bigger one on the other side, I think. Yeah, there's a little bit on the other side. Yeah, there's some you could see a little bit of
A
of
little bit of
of
shadow.
light, yeah,
Yeah.
reflecting against the grayer body. Maybe that's a little bit of strobe lighting, but in general, uh, I think it was probably the just ambient light, the ISO, and
Right.
the, yeah, shutter speed and aperture,
Okay.
basically because of the distance.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things about Sakura. It all happens so quick. I usually do the same. I leave my strobes on. And sometimes what you can do also is like do a burst, and then some of your shots will be with a strobe and some without. And then you can kind of pick, and that helps with the backscatter, I'm sure. But um, yeah, that's I
Yeah,
was just curious about that because it is so quick. I think most people would just have to leave their strobes on and hope for the best. So uh,
yeah, and you always it's always just like, do I maybe sacrifice a little bit of composition for technique or vice versa? It
right.
it it's a split second decision, and in this
Yeah.
case, I just think the composition is there. Let's just
Yeah.
try it.
Yeah, the choice is always yeah. That it's a difficult choice, but it's clear that composition was the choice here, which is I mean,
Yeah,
not to say that there was a great technique, there was, but yeah, it's a great shot. So great. So let's see here. My next question is um what advice would you give to photographers who want to capture something like this?
uh, what advice would I give to photographers who want to capture something like this? I mean, I think okay, so it goes back to what we were talking about, like composition, technique, etc., right? You have
Yeah.
to think you can just shoot randomly, but if you do that, you might get a good shot. But if you kind of, you don't have to have the exact shot in your mind because everything's moving. You're moving, there's current, everything. So it's when people say you have to have that shot in your mind, I say, yeah, that's good on land, but when you're in the water, sometimes it's not that easy. But
Yeah.
uh but at least have an idea in terms of composition of what you want. Like kind of when I'm looking at something, I try to frame it and look at it that way.
Okay.
And obviously the 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 background that you need to have obviously the correct settings so you can have the perfect composition, and if your settings are off, it won't come to fruition, right? Eh, so so basically, if you're heading towards something like this, like in this case, it was an aggregation of sharks, which I knew was something not that typical for these types of sharks. And then as I got closer to them, I started adjusting the settings
Yeah.
so that when I found the composition which I was looking for, then I was ready.
Okay.
Basically that's the best you can do. Then you need, obviously there's luck involved, there's like in every picture, right? And but I think that's basically the other thing is try to think outside the box a little bit. Like sometimes when you're in a group, even if it's a small group, and you see everyone taking pictures from an angle, it's kind of tempting just to go and just swim beside someone and take the same picture. But sometimes you need to think, okay, maybe this would look good from that angle, or maybe zoom a little bit more and get a different perspective. And which is what happened here. I swam up top of it. I think I was the only one at that moment that was on top taking the picture from the top. And I mean it I didn't know it was gonna work like this, but thankfully it did. But it's a testament to just try to in your mind, I mean, try to look for different angles and different possibilities of composition that might look more interesting.
Right. Um, yeah, no, it's that's the fun of it. It allows you to kind of think about the world in a different way, right? You can kind of picture different compositions in your head, look at things, uh, and not just at face value. So, um, now my next question is, what role does your photography play in your life? And beyond the photography, do you see your work playing a role in marine conservation, or what would you like to do with your work, basically?
Well, this is it. I'm obviously an amateur photographer. I mean, I'm not a professional photographer. I mean, this is my first big competition, and but uh, but I love it. I mean, I've been doing it for a few years now, and I I do it as much as I can. Obviously, I'm as much as my wife allows and my two small kids allow,
Of
but I
course.
try to do it as much as I can. I wish I like every diver and photographer to do it every week, every weekend. That would be the ideal, the goal. But I do it. I try to do it as much as I can. I mean, and every dive I go to, I always dive like every photographer with my camera because you never know. You don't want to risk missing the shot. And so that's basically where I've been for the last few years. I mean, every opportunity that I can dive locally or I try to do every place I travel. So there's something I like. Kind of an agreement with my wife. Every place I travel that you can dive, we have an agreement that I'll dive at least two tanks, like a morning or an afternoon of diving, which is great because sometimes even if I'm on a cruise ship, let's say, I'll do that. I mean, I don't want to go to little shops or whatever. I'll just go diving. If it stops
Right.
in Roatang or stops wherever, I'll go diving.
Yeah.
And so that's what I do. And I try, in my case, because of the family and so forth. I try to do a one liveaboard a year. If I
Okay.
can do more, that's amazing. I mean, I'll try to squeeze maybe more if I can, but or at least a diving trip, not necessarily a liveaboard. So that's basically where I'm at. I mean, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Great.
I love diving. I love underwater photography, and I try to do it as much as possible. And when I can't, then I go on the internet, watch videos, watch pictures from other people, and I live vicariously through them too. So
Well, I have the same agreement with my wife every time I travel too. So
yeah,
I think a lot of us do.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, I guess well, my last question then is what's next for you from here? And I believe you're going on a trip to Indonesia as well. Which should be pretty
Yes,
exciting.
yes.
Um,
No,
yeah, so
that's gonna be a never done diving in Indonesia. So
awesome. And do you have any other exciting trips, projects, or goals that you're working on with your photography?
so the next big trip I have is I'm going to Patagonia in Argentina uh,
Nice.
uh, in October, September, end of September, October. Uh, uh, and so that I'm excited about that. That's the next, I guess, big trip I'm doing. I did some diving in Florida a few weeks ago, and some shark diving there, which is nice too. And but yeah, and in the interim, I mean, obviously the Bali trip, the Indonesia trip, is one that I have this year to coordinate. So that's in the works as we speak. So I'm trying to coordinate. Uh, I might ask you afterwards. They can give me, a few pointers of
Yeah,
regarding
definitely.
that trip. But yeah, but that's one. So I have to redeem it this year. So for sure, I'll go sometime this year, and I think it's gonna be. I was thinking probably July,
Okay.
which I looked, and it's a good season to go.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
No, yeah, that's
Yeah,
totally right. I've been in around June, July, and it's awesome that time of year.
yeah,
Usually around I would say January, February, you get a lot more rain. So that's what I would usually avoid. Yeah.
yeah. So those are the
Um,
two big, Indonesia and then Patagonia and Argentina, the two big ones this year. Yeah.
awesome. Well, that should be exciting. Are you going to go for the whales in Patagonia?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, sweet. I've always
Yeah, we're
wanted.
gonna. Yeah. Yes, yes. We're gonna do it obviously from the water with the whales, and then with the right whales, and then we spend, I think it's 2 days or 2 or 3 days seeing the predatory behavior of the orcas that
Okay.
they come offshore,
Wow.
which they do there. It's a very particular area. All these videos that you see are from there when they predate on the sea lions. And so yeah, so that's gonna be a cool trip.
That's awesome. Okay. Sweet. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing your photos from there. And that's pretty much everything I had for this interview. Is there anything else you'd like to say about the experience or the photo or anything at all?
Uh, I mean, as I said, I mean, all of this is a little surreal for me still.
Yeah.
I mean, I, I, I can't believe I won a category and then won Best in Show. I mean, that's a little crazy to me. But and very humbling. But yeah, so I mean, it I guess it motivates me to keep going in the in underwater photography and keep learning and keep new techniques and so and definitely keep trying to travel to these places where you can see these sort of things, which is sometimes I know are not the easiest places to get to, but it's well worth it.
Right.
Once you get
Yeah.
there, it's amazing. So yeah, so that's the plan basically.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining this interview. I think I'm gonna go ahead and end it here, and then if you want, we can stay on and chat about Bali and your prize. But yeah,
Perfect.
I appreciate
Sounds good.
your time here. So let me see if I can figure out how to end the live stream.